Was ist gut? Ein Podcast des Deutschen Designclubs.
Wie wäre es, wenn sich ein ambitionierter Designer hinstellt und sich fragt, wie wäre es, wenn meine schöne Stadt Welthauptstadt des Designs würde? Wie wäre es, wenn wir das Thema Design ein Jahr lang in unserer Stadt zu einem großen Thema machen und zeigen könnten, welche Potenziale für eine menschen- und umweltgerechte Entwicklung der Stadt sich damit verbinden ließe? Und wie wäre es, wenn er sich dann abrackert, um Verbündete zu finden, bis es dann möglicherweise soweit ist? Unser heutiger Gast hat das alles durchgemacht. Willkommen im DDCAST. Mein Name ist Rainer Gerisch. Und Xavi Calvo hatte Erfolg mit seiner Initiative. Er dachte sich, was Turin, Seoul, Helsinki, Mexico City, Cape Town, Taipei oder Lille kann, das können wir doch auch. Selbst wenn wir als Designhauptstadt noch unbekannt sind, trotz all der Gestaltung, die uns umgibt. Und dann hat das Projekt tatsächlich geklappt. 2022 war Valencia World Design Capital. Das hat die Stadt wirklich nach vorne gebracht. Xavi ist ein Designer mit der Vision von einer gerechten Welt und mit einem Schwerpunkt auf innovativen Lösungen. Er ist Autor und Mitarbeiter einer Reihe von Fachmedien und Mitbegründer von Estudio Menta. Er ist Lehrer, Redner und Juror bei verschiedenen Wettbewerben und Auszeichnungen. Vor allem ist er großer Fan von Alltagsgegenständen und Alltagsdesign. Xavi war die treibende Kraft hinter der Bewerbung Valencias als World Design Capital 2022, wurde anschließend Generaldirektor des Projekts und leitet derzeit die Stiftung für Design der Region Valencia, eine Einrichtung, deren Ziel es ist, Design als Instrument für die wirtschaftliche und kulturelle Entwicklung zu fördern und zu unterstützen. Xavi Calvo haben wir beim Second Signing für die Ernennung der Region Frankfurt-Rhein-Main als World Capital 2026 in Hanau getroffen. Mit ihm spricht jetzt mein Kollege Georg Christoph Bernsch.
Well, dear Xavi, good to have you here on the occasion of the second signing here in Hanau.
It's amazing to be here. I'm really happy. I'm really happy sharing this moment. This is my first signing ceremony because Valencia didn't have signing ceremony because of the COVID situation.
Okay.
So my first one.
Great. Hopefully everything will go right. I think today is going to be a very great party also.
Yeah.
Not only the celebration and also the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, what is your role in Valencia today and how did you get there?
Well, I'm a designer. I'm an industrial designer, specialized in graphic design. I had my own design studio. And then I began to read and to write a lot about design in general media because my point of view was focusing design for everyone, not only for designers. So once in 2017, I began to write about what if Valencia was World Design Capital. So from that moment, it began to roll a big ball with other designers, with institutions, with the companies. This was very, very important. And then I was the CEO of a World Design Capital, and now I'm the CEO of the legacy of that design capital, that is the Design Foundation of the region of Valencia. So I'm not designing anymore, but I feel that I'm designing every day other kind of things.
I think this kind of work, when designers get into the role of political designers, as I would see you, then they can use all the skill set that they have.
Yeah, it was like I've been training for years for this moment. I feel much well prepared because I have studied industrial. I have worked as a graphic designer, branding designer. I have worked with lots of different companies and administration as a designer, as a graphic designer. And now I'm offering other kind of solutions to their problems or looking for those problems sometimes to find the right solution. So yeah, I feel a designer 200%. Yeah.
So with Xavi Mariscal, for example, he's always associated with Barcelona, but he comes from Valencia.
Yeah. he's from Valencia, but in the 80s in Valencia, many Valencian designers had to go to Barcelona, for example, to work. And Valencian designers, I think we always have been like under the radar. I mean, most subtle, not very marketing around design in Valencia, but we were designers probably 500 years ago with ceramics, with fabrics, with graphic arts, because the region of Valencia was very rich in industries. And as Julie Capella says, where it was industry, then appeared design to solve problems of the industry. So in Valencia we had many kinds of industries and many kind of designers that worked without being called designers.
But even before the World Design Capital started, you also already had these architectonical projects with Santiago Calatrava. So the city was changing a lot. So when did this start? When did this kind of renewal of the city start?
Yeah, we had these different stages of the city. The Calatrava era with the change of the riverbed of Valencia, and now with a very interesting moment in that the city is changing for pedestrians now. I think it's much more interesting, and both kind of projects are good for the city, for the tourism, for the citizens. We don't have to lose the track, more for the tourists than for the citizen. But the city is changing a lot in the recent years. Well, it's the World Design Capital. This year, Valencia is European Green Capital too. So I think we can be a lighthouse to the rest of the world about some kind of politics from the city of Valencia. It's a small city.
Is there any connection between this Valencia as Green City and the World Design Capital?
Well, when it was named Green City, we were celebrating the World Design Capital, okay. But everything is part of that. I mean, today we are living good times for Valencian design. It's everything because we were World Design Capital. Not for everything, but it was very interesting because the focus of the whole world was put in Valencia.
But if you're talking about design impact, also means talking about how you interact with the people, everyday people on the street. So how do you do that?
I think it is the most interesting part because we were the World Design Capital project before 2022, 2021, 2020. We were talking about social values and talking about design as something that you use absolutely every day in every moment of your life. So everything has been designed, well or bad, but everything has been designed, and you are user and consumer of design. So our first, or probably almost of the World Design Capital projects, were about talking about quotidian objects, a chair, a user, a pencil, I mean, small things, but also a hospital and how design can save lives. So every project was very pedagogic or didactical in that way, explaining the people that design is absolutely everything. So that was how we crossed that barrier from designers to talking to the general audience and all the people.
If you're talking about the impact of design on improving people's life, I think the most important challenge is to also improve the life of poor people. So what is your policy about this connection, let's say, with the marginalized or the poor?
Yeah, because of probably those social principles, values I was saying to you, because design has to be sustainable, of course, has to be inclusive. So we have to design for everyone. And I think designers, when design, they have a lot of barriers that they don't realize probably most of the time. So, for example, one example is the public furniture. I mean, if you take some minutes to think about it, it's not designed, for example, for people that is living on the streets. Valencia, Spain is a nice, we have nice weather, so people can be sleeping, unfortunately, on the streets, but it's very difficult to find a place to lay on. Now the public furniture is not prepared for them, for example. So we as designers have to put the light on that problem, on that big problem, and not design for the those bad uses of design. This is one of those examples that when we design, we have to be thinking about absolutely everyone. It's the same. We have talked a lot about gender design in gender, and how everything was designed for men during centuries.
Yeah.
Now this is probably a common discussion, but we have to think also in these people that has not been as lucky as us.
So also, let's say one project which I find really stunning was this Porvenir, to give a second chance to people at risk of social exclusion. So please talk a little bit about this project, because I think it's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, that was with a foundation with the University of Valencia they are specialized in art and therapy. So they were teaching designers to be part of these groups of people to introduce them to the work world. So designers help them to do what they most like, making things with different kind of processes, and the designers with the therapists were helping them to build new objects and things. And then they created these exhibitions to show the power of design with this kind of groups of people. So this was a very interesting project with other ones that were introducing people with some problems to the real world of laboral work world.
What I find maybe even more interesting is this ecocontenedor social.
Yeah.
The Spanish title is Una vivienda sostenible en contenedores marítimos, a sustainable home in transport containers.
Yeah, Valencia has a very big harbor port, so those big containers, can be prepared, also redesigned to be like a sustainable home.
Okay.
So we make a couple of with those organizations some kind of prototypes of how a home can be inside this kind of containers. So that was very interesting, because a lot of pupils and students from the School of Design, the Public School of Design, were working in this project, showing that we can prepare those new places for as homes. So also we can think in poor people, for example, as new options that the cities or the municipalities can put for them.
But this is obviously a transdisciplinary project, because you can't do that without architects, let's say fire, security people, whatever.
In that project, there were working some energy companies, for example, for the panels, for having electricity and all of that. So I think almost of the projects were very transversal, working with not only with the culture and museums, but also with, for example, hospitals, with those projects about health and well-being.
So, and how are you, let's say, by the politics? How are you perceived by city politics? Because usually politicians, as we know it here, react late, but then they really expect something from you when you are really into design and they understand what the impact is.
Yeah.
So how do you work together with politics?
Well, from the very beginning, they believed in design. So that was the first step, was well done. And then we had to... It's like the regular conversation with a new client for a designer, that the first 3-4 meetings, you are not talking about the design, you're talking about what design is and putting lots of examples. So with the politics, we had to put lots of examples of other cities or other urban plans. So we were lucky because they had a specialist in architecture or urbanism in the City Hall of Valencia. So it was like the first steps were good. So giving lots of examples. And the World Design Capital is a very important project to use as an example. For example, Valencia since 2019 made a lot of places for pedestrians. That was thanks to the World Design Capital. Okay, not only because of the World Design Capital, it's because the politics believed in that. They had so many examples traveling through Europe, for example. So the good and the bad thing with the politicians is that they have to have this. They have to be sensitive with design. It's a problem of the person, not of the politicians or the institutions. So if you find the right person and you can explain well what you want to do for the city, they will hear you. But it's
what I find
personal.
What I find really interesting is that you said that your experience from having been working as a designer helps you to negotiate with politics.
Yeah. It's a good example. I mean, talking with clients as a designer, you cannot go to the first meeting with some proposals. No, you have to talk a lot about the project. It's like building a house. You have to begin from down to top, not from top to down. So with the politicians was like that. And we were really lucky because we had these companies and other organizations and the Society of Valencia that was very pushing the project of World Design Capital. So we were really happy, everyone. And that was very contagious.
You also already mentioned this quote by one of the, let's say, most important writers and critics and curators in Spanish design, Juli Capella, about the history of design, not only in Valencia. I think one of the projects which I find really fascinating is the Noya ceramics project. Please talk a little bit about it, because this is very specific about the place.
This is one of the examples of the industry of Valencia that was very rich in design, but it was not called design. It has to be with ceramics, because in Castellón is part of the region of Valencia. They are very rich in the ceramic industry in the whole world, exporting to the whole world. So a couple of centuries ago, this man created these small tiles. Today is pixel art. So he invented pixel art with tiles, and many floors from the houses in Valencia are with mosaico Noya. So we did a work of recovering that and putting the focus on the heritage of Valencian design and culture, and preparing some games for children for play with mosaico Noya. So they created this pixel art, these new mosaics for floors. So this is something we had to recover in Valencia, and there are many associations that are working with that.
Looking at today's economic, let's say, power of the region of Valencia, Castellón, Alicante. So what is the industry, or what is the design industry in this region? Because some of those cities are very well known as, let's say, holiday cities to Germans, but some of them are also known as industrial cities.
Yeah.
But what would you say is the main design focus there?
Well, if you go from Castellón, Valencia and Alicante, you can go to the beach, but if you go into the interior of the zones, you can find lots of hundreds, thousands of industry. So Alicante is famous for fabric, for toy, for shoes. Castellón for ceramics, also for pottery. We had this furniture also in Valencia. We had this orange exportation from Valencia and Castellón and Alicante since 200 years ago. In fact, I think, I'm talking about oranges because I think Valencian designers invented the branding 200 years ago, because there were like thousands of brands to export orange and citrus to a lot of parts of the world. And depending the country, it was a different brand and different branding, different illustration and things. So they put these labels in the boxes and in the oranges and in the papers. And I think they invented this kind of branding. And there are collectors from all over the world, collectors of Valencian brands, orange brands. But in Valencia, you talk about this, and people don't know about the history of the orange. So this is one of these examples that design was improving the companies, but it was not called design. So it didn't transcend to the years. But with the World Design Capital project, what we did was to put like a loudspeaker and talk about these small stories. So probably one of the most important parts of the World Design Capital was the communication and the storytelling. Telling about this. This is design. And furniture is good in Valencia because of design many centuries ago, and ceramics and graphic arts. We had the first printing book in Spain, in Valencia. Valencia is twin city with mines, for example, that is from Frankfurt Main Rhine. So this is not by casualty. I mean, this was because there were design industry, but it's not called design industry. It's called furniture, it's called ceramics, it's called fabrics.
So looking at the city of Valencia, I mean, many of us might know the city or might have an impression. I've got a very good impression because I love the city for its also pedestrian areas, the beach and so on. So, but what is the characteristic of the city in today? If you look at Valencia as a Valencian, or you've been traveling a lot, if you look at Valencia from outside, what is the Valencia?
Yeah, Valencia has to take the best parts of other cities. I mean, it's not bad thinking about that. We have to think about making everything excellent, about design, also as a city. So the politicians in Valencia were inspired by other parts of Europe, for example, with to make this great bike lane circuit through the city of Valencia. Valencia 10 years ago was not a city for bikes, and today it's a city for bikes and pedestrians. So now that I can see Valencia with other eyes, you see traveling a lot and seeing it from outside, I'm very honored to feel that some of the best things of other cities are in the city where I live, because design is making people lives better. Yeah.
So there's a critical point about the show in 22 because it was held under these critical conditions of COVID shortly before and even in 22. Yeah. So how did you deal with this incredible challenge as, let's say, a show which must rely on people in being or coming to your place?
There was something that was written before COVID. When we were preparing the bid in 2019, we presented the bid for being World Design Capital. We said we were not preparing an event. We were starting a process of change for a city. So we write some kind of manifesto where we said that design has to be in every crisis, has to be helping people, not only in the good moments. So unfortunately, we had this COVID all over the world, the big pandemic. So we began to work. So our first project as World Design Capital was in March, April 2020, and was called Això també passarà, This Shall Too Pass. That was a website talking about projects, design projects about all over the world to help with the pandemic. From the first masks or all the things the hospitals needed to things to entertain children at home or to make workshops at home with older people. So it was a website full of projects from designers all over the world helping other people. So this was the spirit of the first stone of the World Design Capital. So social values, talking about crisis, talking about design for everyone. And this was part of the discourse we had during the World Design Capital.
You have mentioned cooperations with medical researchers and medical people several times now.
Yeah.
There seems to be a certain focus on that.
Yeah, that's because those COVID probably put the first stone also from a lane talking about health and well-being. Yeah. For me, design is well-being because you try to make people's lives easier and better. And one of the biggest exhibitions we had in 2022 was prepared since 2020. That it was Design plus Health, curated by Ramon Úbeda. And this is a great exhibition taking projects from all over the world to talk about design. But we had like the most futuristic 3D printed wheelchair, but we had also how do people in some regions of Africa build their wheelchairs with a monoblock plastic chair from a restaurant, from a bar, and putting some wheels from a bicycle. I mean, it was an exhibition about design and health. It was so normal for the people. People from the hospitals visited this exhibition and realized design is in their work. Design can help to save a life because you are faster preparing a surgery, for example.
So let's say talking a little bit about the institutions, because the Municipal Design Council and the Fundación del Diseño de la Comunidad de Valencia are two institutions that are working there. So what are they doing and how are they cooperating?
Yeah, a very good example is from the Valencia City Council, City Hall, working with the Design Foundation of the Region of Valencia, we created this kind of advisory team called Design Council of Valencia. It's 12 professionals of design, from the urban design, architects, industrial designers, people from landscape, that they are helping to detect the problems of the city, but also the opportunities the city has. So we created this first book as the first steps, precisely putting the focus on the opportunities of the city in everything, in streets, in communications, in everything what a city is. And what is a city? What people, where people is, physically or digitally on the website. So you have to think that Spain had a lot of culture, lack of culture of design during decades, and now we are like doing all the homework we had decades ago. So World Design Capital was a trigger to all kind of projects, also this kind of projects. So the foundation of Design Foundation of the Region of Valencia is working with the City Hall precisely in things about design. They don't have a design department. We would like to have a design department in the City Hall, but at the moment we are helping from outside.
So what comes to your mind when you hear this design for democracy and atmospheres for a better life? So how does this resonate with you?
I think about this design for every day. I think in the Mocha Express where I do coffee in the morning. I think in the brown Cytomatic juicer. I mean, this is design for everyone. This is my concept of design for democracy. But also it's about politics, yes, because design is taking part of things. So design is very political. And we have to have this in mind. But for me, this design for democracy is like design for everyone. And I think from Europe, we can give a great lesson about this to all the rest of the world.
So now we're gonna finish our conversation with our famous overall question, the general question: what is good? I mean, it's very general. You can answer however you want. What is good?
What is good?
What is good? What is good?
About design.
About everything.
What is good? The things that make our life easier in every aspect. In an ATM, in a bicycle, in a city.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this interview, because I think it's very important for us to understand what actually happened 2 years ago in Valencia and how this has created sustainable development. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Here. Thank you.
Das war Xavi Calvo im Gespräch mit Georg. Seine Geschichten machen noch mehr Lust auf das, was in Frankfurt Rhein-Main gerade beginnt. Die Vorbereitung nämlich auf World Design Capital 2026. In der kommenden Woche treffen wir dann Professorin Dr. Katrin Böning-Gäse, Forscherin, Buchautorin und Ausstellungsmacherin. Es geht unter anderem darum, wie wir dem dramatischen Verlust an Biodiversität, der unseren Planeten und uns als Menschen gefährdet, etwas entgegensetzen können. Der Titel der Sendung heißt Biodiversität gestalten. Denn wir können und müssen da einiges gestalten. Im positiven Sinne natürlich. Bis dahin wünschen wir euch wie immer alles Gute und eine kreative Woche. Eure DDCAST-Redaktion.